Hello, my name is Tim Bailey. Welcome to this deep dive into public IT systems. We're going to talk with a panel of experts here, and hopefully everyone can learn all they need to know about public IT systems. So I have a very distinguished panel of experts here today, and I'd like to ask each of them to introduce themselves, their company, and what their company does. Peter Wong, let me start with you.
Thanks, Tim. So my name is Peter Wong. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at Prenetics. So Prenetics is a genomic testing company. We really focusing on genomics and molecular technologies. So we've been doing quite a bit of that from a perspective recently into oncology, specifically in precision medicine and that space. Now, looking at what we do in terms of DNA test, genomic testing, there is obviously a lot of data involved, data that are personal, sensitive to our customers. And so from our perspective is looking at how we can give that ownership of the data back to the user, from using public IT systems, using decentralized technology. So this is where we are looking into that. We're exploring into this territory.
Great. Thank you, Peter. Welcome. Kent Ling from Liquid.
Yeah. Thank you, Tim. Thanks for having me. I'm the co-founder and tech lead of Liquid. Liquid main focus is to create a secure decentralized architecture on the identity of a person as well as their corporate informations. This is so-called DID in short form, which is helping the clients to protect the integrity of their data by collecting the data from source, and also regaining the ownership of the identity and data for clients through a tokenization process. Okay, in 2022, we try to present the whole project with some use case to the Hong Kong Institution of Bankers, and receive lots of positive feedback. In the same year, we are honored to have won the Gold Award of the Hong Kong ICT Award in the regulatory tech categories. Those attentions that we have drawn from the public is so encouraging, and we are optimistic about the future of Web3 and looking forward to have a more new ecosystem of federation of the Web3 applications. Thanks again for inviting me.
Great. Thanks for being here, Ken. Mohamed, Taysir, can you introduce yourself?
Hey guys, how are you? My name is Mohamed. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Singularity Finance. So Singularity, we are a blockchain as a service provider, let's say, and an infrastructure provider for blockchain and Web3 infrastructure for corporates and government agencies that want to utilize blockchain within their infrastructure and want to start deploying different Web3 or blockchain-powered solutions, essentially. We're focused mainly in the Middle East and Africa, and I'm glad to be here with you guys. Thanks for having me, Tim.
Thanks, Mohamed. Yifan?
My name is Yifan He, and I'm the CEO and the founder of Ready Technology. So basically what we do is building the decentralized infrastructure. So for developers and enterprises, it's easier for them to build public IT systems or decentralized applications. So the public IT system is a new term. So we basically is compared to the private system. So public system, private system. So public system is not like a public chain. It's like a multi-party kind of system. So we just call them public system, to easier to compare to the private system. So that's basically what the term means. Tim?
Thanks, Yifan. So Peter, maybe back to you. First question: how do you, when you hear the term, if you were going to tell people, what a public IT system is, how would you explain it to someone?
So we explain it by saying the fact that traditionally, or even up till now, a lot of the IT system that we use on a day-to-day basis, the data transfer and ownership really is rather one way. So we use any IT systems, we give data into that system, but that system actually is hosted by a third party and is controlled and owned by a third party. Obviously, there are regulations and rules around and terms and consents and things like that. But ultimately, the usage of that data and the ownership and the control of that data really relies on the processor and the controller. Now, a public IT system, from our perspective, is see where we can decentralize that. Basically, saying giving the control of the data back to the user, and be able to make use of the infrastructure, public infrastructure and services on those data. And this is where, even initially where Ken was saying about the ID. So this is where, being able to identify and verify your own identity without a third party. And so, then you can translate all the way to that to the proof of the health data you have, say on a blockchain. And this is where the power of the decentralized system comes in. And so a public IT system, from our perspective, is how do we develop that system together with the community to serve that purpose, so that individuals who provide that data can get that back and be able to say, hey, this is a piece of data we've used, regardless of the test results, or is it a piece of health data. They've got to prove that it is theirs. They've got to prove how it came from, and they can make use of it when they want to.
Kent, does that align with how Liquid thinks about public IT systems?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I guess Peter has already gone through a lot of very details about the public IT systems. And I just want to add one thing is actually on the public IT system, the token is the key. Yeah, we are actually creating a kind of token economies that interact with more privacy, integrity, and confidentialities. So in my point of view, the public IT system can be managed. It can be controlled by a group of users. For users or organizations, and it offers some easy connectivity, some data ownership, and get back to the backend systems. So we have a lot of different things we can enable for the creation of this kind of systems, and we have different design architecture on this. So in general, it is allowing the user to control over the data and decide when and where to share their personal information, in my point of view. Yeah.
So you mentioned the word token, and I think a lot of people, when they hear token, they may think cryptocurrency token. Is that what are you talking about, cryptocurrency tokens?
Yes, but not limited to. Yeah, if I am saying about tokens, we are referring to some standard that we are currently understand. For example, ERC 4671. This is a kind of tokens which is called non-tradable tokens, and also under this category we have the soulbound tokens. There are different types of tokens that we can manage, and on this kind of different token standards, and we can build our architecture under this kind of tokens economies.
Yeah. So I think you're saying it's not necessarily tokens that are being used as stored value or as payments, right? It's more. That makes sense. Mohamed, can you talk a little bit about public IT systems, particularly from your perspective? There in the Middle East and Africa, and what you're seeing with respect to public IT systems there?
So I would say, from a definition standpoint, there isn't really much to add to what has been said on public IT systems. I think in general, what we're seeing in the Web3 space and the regulation coming in from Dubai and different areas in the Middle East, I would say that there will be a growth of Web3 based companies that add, because when you look at a blockchain, inherently how data it is, if we're looking at a public blockchain and the data is available to use, that's inherently like a public system where the data is available and what can be widely used. The difference is that, as Kent was saying, is it gives more ownership over the data and how people can manage their data and transact their data, where they can share it, And as he pointed out, and when you were hinting towards like crypto, cryptographic tokens can represent anything. And we do have the non-fungible tokens standard where you can use it to identify unique identifiers. And I would guess that Kent would have a lot more to say about that because of their digital identity and how they're working with digital identity and so forth, and how you can link unique personal IDs to specific sets of data, and then how you can control it and so forth. So I would say out of the Middle East, blockchain is a big thing today. It's definitely growing in terms of popularity. Crypto is gaining, even cryptocurrency is gaining some form of legitimacy, I would say, in terms of like legalization and so forth. But it's not necessarily limited to that. You'll see a lot of things being utilized coming up in terms of like supply chain, identity, definitely in DeFi and Islamic finance, and a lot more of other solutions as well.
Yifan, why do we need public IT systems?
I think right now it's actually pretty easy to understand because the cryptocurrency already exists for like 15 years, right? So like I always compare the cryptocurrency, the public chain system actually to a banking system, right? Basically, if you centralize the Bitcoin and the Ethereum, it's what the system become. It's a small banking system, right? A big ledger is a bank's balance sheet with individual accounts. Then basically transfer. The business is transfers between those individual accounts. Then you can also bank can deploy a small script, to do multiple transfer at the same time. Then it's called a smart contract. Right. So if it's a centralized system, whatever you do, you need to go through a bank, right? If a bank don't allow you, because everything belongs to the bank. But once you decentralize the whole thing, then when you create accounts, you don't go through a bank. Whatever the token represents is a cryptocurrency or a building, part of a building, is a security, whatever, then it belongs to you. You don't need to rely on a bank to control it. So what is really, like everybody, talk about here is there's an IT architecture allow you to control some data by yourself without relying on a central authority. So like a cryptocurrency, it actually, this kind of decentralization created a new kind of, basically it's unregulated securities. Right. So everybody begin to dive in, because unregulated stuff is always more attractive to than the regulated stuff. So that's how even the cryptocurrency become a thing. So that being said, it's I mean, in this whole world, there's so many different business scenarios. Right, some of the business scenarios will still heavily rely on centralized system because for example, you're paying tax, you need to pay to the the government, so it needed to be centralized. But there's a lot of things you can decentralize and bring out the benefits which the private system, centralized system cannot even offer. Right, like right now, very simple, still using the banking example. Right now, the bank accounts, right? The bank accounts is money, okay? Whenever you want to access it, you need to go through bank. No matter it's a website, app, you go to the counter, you have to go through that. But if in the future, there's a bank account you control, then whatever you want to pay, you trigger them. Then immediately it gives people, especially enterprises, a lot of, much more efficient to manage the money and move the money around. I mean, think about this. It's become, bank offer. But it's still bank account. Bank still can freeze that. Still need to do AML, still do KYC. But they gave you. Think about that as cash, bank give to you, but somehow it's still digitally linked back to the bank. But you can use that just like cash. When you use cash, you don't need anyone's permission. right? Then, the cash moves much, much faster than you have to go through. So just think about the bank account is something you control, no longer bank control. Of course, bank won't pay you interest because that's it become your money. So this is actually means ownership. And those money in this decentralized wallet, then it no longer on bank's balance sheet. It belongs to you. Then the banking become a fintech services, for you to easy to move money, to trigger money, then you can program something between, your wallet and your client's wallet, to freeze some money for, as a deposit and release triggered by some condition. You can do whatever you want without the bank. Then immediately the payments and the currencies moves much faster and much more efficient. Then it makes the economy move faster. So that's actually something. Think about this: a bank account, it's controlled by you, not the bank. So think about that.
I would like to. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Ken.
Yifan, you're sharing is a very, very good point on the ownership. I just want to add one more real world scenario here. For example, if you are going to prove that you have an ID card, you're just trying to pull out your ID card from your wallet, right? So when you're going to the authorities, going to the banks, or maybe just check in the hotels, they are just going to confirm your identity this way, okay? So after your presentation, after you're showing your ID card, you're actually going back to the wallets, which means that we are retaining the control of the data. Yeah, this is a very important part. And everyone just forgot, wow, I just doing the presentation and I didn't put my ID card back. And for real world scenario, this is not going to happen. But how about the online scenario? When you are shopping online, when you are registering a bank account, you are actually doing a lot of different ways to identify yourself. For example, you are doing the KYC verifications, you are doing the video identifications, or just entering some data in the online form. User just leave behind the data to the provider that store and manage. Yeah, it is convenient, but however, there is some kind of security risk. And because we are not just presenting our data, the data is actually being stored. So the user does not keep this identity in their wallets. So they cannot have no control, in no ways to control what happens and who can view it. And even though who log into the website or apps, they actually store everything. For example, they record when you are going to log in and what you have been viewed. Yeah, everything. So this is gonna change if we are going to have a kind of public ID system. And yeah, this is something I just want to bring out.
Yeah, Ken, I totally agree. I totally agree. You actually, for the private system, but this is how they build. I actually, everybody blame the Facebook, you have like 3 billion accounts, you make money on that. I mean, that's how internet is built. Because that's how internet is built. That's how Facebook is built, centralized system. When you want to use the services, when they want to serve you, you have to go into their home. And whatever you do there, it's their home. For example, if you come my home, you write a very beautiful song on my wall. That copyright belongs to me, not you, okay? Because it's my property. So think about this, because what else you can do?
Yeah.
Then the only choice is don't use my services. If you want to use, come in, do whatever under my control. So, but the decentralization, the public ID system will change that. So you actually can keep, just like Ken's, the example is like in real life, we can do that. This is mine. I just show you, take a look, come back to me. I don't need to leave anything with you. Yeah. So how to the public ID system and the decentralization actually is enable that virtually, right? Like Ken said, it's online. How you do that? That's actually the whole point of decentralization and the public IT system with a public environment. Like Ken said, is when you when you're standing in a public environment, you control your data, you show it, you take back. No one can get rid of you from a public environment. Then that's the benefit of public IT system, because otherwise you have to stand in someone's home and they can always get rid of you. So that's actually, it's ownership, authority, and actually basic rights to be there where you stand. It's a public park, it's a public street, or it's a personal property. You could get a shot on private property in the US.
Yeah, so I think that's a very good point, because I do see the fact that obviously the ownership and the fact that the control is or the decentralized of the control is very important. I think from a healthcare perspective also is the authenticity of the data. And if we produce data, so for example, in our journey in precision oncology, where we actually, our customers are cancer patients, where they actually, they are going through looking at doing diagnosis, and one of the things we do is do genomic profiling. So we actually take the tissue sample, a tissue biopsy, and then do the DNA analysis of that, and that produces a lot of data, right? Now, the question, of course, around that is how do we give that data back to the user, back to the patient, so they have complete control of that data. And the fact that the test result comes back, we know who authorized that data, and there's a proof of that authentication of that authenticity. So I think that's quite important, because some of this health data will be used downstream, and they can trace it back. They don't need to go through a third party specifically to get that saying, oh, it's from this lab or it's from that hospital.
Yeah, it's that's why, Tim, you really love the example from Prenetics. So yeah. Because the company, the nature of your company is very, very privacy related, right? It's a medical record, it's testing record. So that's why Ken and I was talked about how individual end user to react to this kind of public IT system, how we adopt. But actually, the most important is the business, how you also adopt the process, the public IT system from your end. Because, for example, if Facebook in 10 years is still the centralized system, once you come to me, you have to surrender everything. I mean, trust me, in 10 years, nobody will go to Facebook anymore. There will be decentralized social media. Think about that. Social media, you keep everything by yourself, but you still interact with other users through some kind of platform which don't control your data. It will be, something will happen large scale. There's many examples right now, but some large scale everybody will see in 2 or 3 years. Then it will slowly replace Facebook. But the Facebook, of course, they will adopt this too from their side, right? This is how we move everything forward, right?
Right. And Peter, how do you, when you think about consumers, right? Because you're ultimately, Prenetics is, you have a business that's a B2C business, right? How are you thinking about how you'll explain some of the concepts that you talked about to consumers, and what are the benefits to them?
So the way we look at it is, imagine you, actually very similar to what Yifan is saying in terms of the bank account, actually bank account analogy. You no longer need to go through a third party, right? And what that means is allowing them to always have access to their own data. And the way we could explain it to our user is that you choose what data you want to provide, and you can revoke that access as and when you want to. And once that test data becomes available, you can then get hold of that. And obviously, we need to have the right encryptions, the right encryption in transit to make sure that the proof stays on the chain, because genomics data is actually quite a lot in volume, right? We're talking about gigabytes, terabytes of data. And so at this point in time, actually doing that off chain would be more scalable from that perspective. But the proof That's not the proof need not to be. It's not that big amount of data, so the proof can stay on the chain. And actually, that's the piece that where we can guarantee decentralization and complete privacy, if you will, because then it actually everyone can see the proof. And on top of that, anyone who joins that decentralized system, they can join anonymously. And that's one thing actually quite important when you go on and do a DNA test or any health check, right? You might want to enroll a service, but you don't want to tell the lab who you are. You just want to give a sample and you want to get the result back. You don't necessarily need to give all your PII to that particular lab. And so that's where another power comes in. This is where we can use a decentralized system within Web3, like blockchain, where we could actually enter that system anonymously. Using keys, we can basically public-private keys in terms from that perspective, and we can share that information with the lab, so the lab can send back and using the public key to encrypt that data and send it back to us, but without us actually needing to give our identity to them. So you get your ownership and you get your anonymity.
Where do you think things are going in the future? So Yifan, you a lot of times you've talked about public IT systems, and do you think they're going to replace private IT systems? Like a lot of people talk about Web3 is going to replace Web2. What do you think the future is?
Yeah, no, that's not going to happen. Like you can spend as much time in a public park, but you always go back home. so it's more like it really depends on the business scenario. What's the business requirement? So personalizing in 10 years, the public IT system, decentralization, Web3, whatever you want to call that, shared, IT system, become a common knowledge to all the developers. So when anyone design a system, they know what data and the processing will stay in the backend private system and what data and the processing stays in the more relatively public IT system. Remember, the public IT system is always multi-party. If it's only your own self, just stay home. Why you even go out, talk to other people? So which means is remember, you always have data for your own, and because this world becomes so complicated, whatever you do, always interact with other IT system, other parties. So that's why it will be a combination of both systems to build one complicated entire IT system. So that's the future. But the personalizing is probably in 20 years, still the private system is still the majority one. Probably like 70% data and the process is still in the back end, but there's 30% in a more open environment. So that should be the case.
I do agree that in maybe for 10 years later, there will be still a lot of private IT systems. But however, I think that's on the identity part, there will be going to have some change. As you can see, as I've just mentioned about the non-tradable tokens, the ERC 4671 is a kind of tokens that can store some personal possessions. For example, such as your university diploma or some government issued documents, your ID card, your driving license, visa, wedding certificates, etc. So this is the click on the Web3 developments. My point of view is that for the Web3 is actually a kind of backend revolutions. Web3 is just rewiring how the internet is doing from in the backend by combining the systems and functions on the internet to the system of different computer with different functions. Okay, so I think on Web3, it is represent as a set of protocols. And with the distributed ledger as the backbone, the data are collaboratively managed by a network of computers. So I think in my point of view, this is going to have some changes. At least not all of them, but I think at least maybe 10 to 20% of the system, they might go to access to the public IT systems and have some new applications later on.
And for some of the industry, 100% the data will move to the public environment, like all the personal data. You know, your wallets, your securities, you know, your currencies, your insurance policies, you know, all those personal data actually definitely move to more, and it should be a very large, massive public IT system. So then nobody can delay your personal data. So because, you know, right now, if you say, okay, I can, you know, I'm a developer, I can program my personal data vault. I can put all my identity here. Then the next question is where you deploy that. AWS can still delay everything if you don't pay monthly. So it's you need an environment. You deploy something there, and nobody can delay, unless you become the public enemy number one. So everybody votes, delay this stuff, then it can be delayed. But for a regular person, nobody can touch and delay and crack your data vault. That should be the case. So what I believe is for personal data, especially the privacy data, definitely move from the private system, and there will be law legislations. For example, European Union, they will say for any kind of big platform, you cannot store the following personal data. You need to use this kind of public environment, like the end user control their data and only give you results. That will become law in 10 years in many countries.
I definitely agree with what most of has been said, like adding to what you guys have been saying, because I've been kind of like listening to what you guys have said. I would say that in the next 10 to 15 years, as the technology progresses, as people start looking into I think one of the main drivers is going to be monetization of their data and their ownership. Because if we combine what you guys were talking about digital identity with healthcare records and how you have ownership over your records and how you can share it, it opens up an avenue for decentralization in medical research, and how can open up and allow for lowering the cost of medical research due to the accessibility of authenticated real data, real time across the world from a multitude of pools for doctors to access at the same time, and for the patient to monetize their data at the same time as well. So I think there will be a mix and match between a lot of industries and how they use the technology that would allow people to monetize their and create passive income generation. Because looking at how the economy in the world is progressing, and how there's a shift in the world and how people are making money, and the need to always be generating some form of income, we generate bucket loads of data on a daily basis, and most of it is widely available online publicly, but it's just that most people don't know how to get that data and how to monetize that data as well, because it's just there and it's yours, but it's not yours at the same time. Yeah, it's like if you're using Facebook, it's yours.
Legally, it's not yours.
You know,
it represents you, but you don't own it.
So, exactly. So I think I think as we move forward, we're going to see definitely a leap in hardware as well, like in how smartphones are built to accommodate for these things, and how we're going to make it easier for people. Because let's be honest, still today, Web3 is not there yet for like the average Joe to understand why it's important, how to manage their private keys and so forth, and securities and so forth. So and that's why a lot of people used to go for centralized entities. It's because of the convenience. We are creatures of convenience, and people love having it easy. So I think as the industry grows, we're going to be more focused, definitely, as today we're focused on mass adoption. We always think about how can we make it easier for people to use those systems. And I think the value is there. It's just that we need to make it much more accessible for people to be able to okay, I can easily go to this platform. I can just get my data on there. I can start monetizing my data, start getting my money into my wallet, all of that, without having to worry about the headaches of the intricacies of setting this up and doing all of those things. So yeah, I think in the next 15 years, this is the real leap. It will be in this area.
Technically, actually, this is actually bring out a future industry. Because remember, when you do business, you rely on data. You know, it's not like really personal data, like you name stuff, but I need the patterns, right? The commercial patterns, the human behavior patterns, so I can, you know. So right now, how you do that? You actually go to Facebook. Like, let's still use Facebook like the bad guy. Okay, you go to Facebook and say, okay, I need those patterns. Facebook won't sell you personal data, but they sell the data they get from all the personal behaviors on their website, right? Then they basically, you know, compile the data, calculate, build a big model, then get the results, sell to the, you know, whoever needs the data. That's today. In the future, it's still the business. They still need data. If they go to Facebook, Facebook said, I have no data. Sorry, because, you know, I even don't know who is who. I don't know where they come from. You know, this is now we become decentralized Facebook. We don't have data. We have to build our own business models. Definitely not data go away. But you will go to this kind of data agency, you know. But what they do, actually, they build a very big program with permission, with individual data vaults. They actually can get some history and whatever through zero knowledge proof or, you know, confidential computing. You can provide some pattern data, behavior data to them, and they pay you. So it's no longer, you know, the business who needs the data pays the Facebook. Is the whoever needs the data pays to the you know, basically the data agency. Then the data agency actually distributes the data to individuals but get the pattern data up and generates reports to them. So actually the whole industry becomes this. But how they can get data? First, they need to pay you and get your permission. Without your permission, if you say, okay, I don't need that money, I don't want to share anything, then that's your freedom. That alone changes everything.
Well, I want to thank all of you for joining today. We're out of time for today, and I think we've all had some great insights from each of you on public IT systems. And thank you once again for joining. Look forward to having you on another show in the future.
Thank you, Tim.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Peter, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mo, thank you.